The gentleman yields. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes for questions. Mr. Mehan, in your written testimony, you state that CERCLA was not designed for chemicals like PFOA or PFAS. I'd like for you to explain that a little bit, but I also want to know, are there other laws already on the books that are better for addressing these?
Well, I think the ubiquity issue that Susan Bodine mentioned is really key. It is, it's omnipresent, and again, the way the standard that's being set, at least for the MCL under the Safe Drinking Water Act at 4 parts per trillion, that will drive Superfund cleanup standards. So when you add the MCL with the ubiquity, I think you've got a real problem. And of course, the range of potentially responsible parties is just going to explode, including water and wastewater utilities. So I think that's sort of the key reality that we're facing in our sector. As to other laws, I do agree with Ms. Donovan that we need to look at source water protection at a strategic level, not just the Safe Drinking Water Act, which is at the end of the pipe and puts all the burden on the ratepayers and the citizens of those communities. We need to, the Lautenberg bill actually contemplated looking at drinking water effects and the review of chemicals, and we've seen very little of that effort in that office. We could have effluent guidelines under the Clean Water Act targeting producers of PFAS compounds. We're not seeing any action on that front. So I think there are other tools in the toolbox besides the Safe Drinking Water Act, which
When you
is
talk about
at the
this,
end of the line.
we talk about an affordability crisis in the country. That covers practically everything we're using right now. How will CERCLA designation impact affordability for water utilities and their customers?
Well, there are 4 categories of potentially responsible parties, and as I say, I think it's fair to say at least 2 of them will touch water and wastewater utilities, maybe even 3, depending on circumstances. So once you get dragged into litigation, you have several factors that come to bear. The underlying liability, which might be small, but you certainly have the litigation costs, which can run for years and go into the millions of dollars. And then you have, and a lot of people underestimate this, the reputational risk. A utility, a water utility, is a customer-facing entity dependent, almost 98%, I make that number up, on ratepayers, not the federal government, not the state
we need to make the investments to ensure
I'm sorry?
You don't disagree that we need to make the investments to make sure our water is
Sure,
clean
but I'm
and
talking
free.
about cost of the Superfund designation and being dragged into litigation as a PRP,
Right.
that's all. You're right, absolutely, on the costs are immense on just complying with the MCLs and the Safe Drinking Water Act.
Mr. Falvey, given your experience with CERCLA and with transactions involving properties with contamination concerns, part of the issue here is how it impacts communities, the surrounding communities, and the opportunity for better paying jobs, for new jobs. And to his point about the reputational problems, how does that impact the ability to develop a site that could get a business there, provide a better job for people, better health care, better income?
Yeah, so the development community and markets and lenders hate uncertainty. And what the PFAS, PFOA, or the PFOA, PFOS designation does is it injects that uncertainty into the market because the cleanup standards are not well defined, they're inconsistent from state to state, and with a chemical that's ubiquitous in the environment, finding the actual source is very difficult. So for cleanups of property to be accomplished, trying to investigate where that PFAS came from is extremely expensive, and given that it's ubiquitous in the environment and deemed hazardous at very minute cleanup levels, it implicates a lot of liability.
Ms. Bodine, in your written testimony, you talked about the draconian nature of CERCLA liability and the transaction costs associated with resolving these. That extends to potentially someone who would buy property that the EPA had deemed cleaned. If they discovered something else on that property, they would be subject to a massive lawsuit. Is that correct?
That's correct. EPA can give somebody a comfort letter, say a property is clean, and no, it doesn't matter. you could sell the property and the subsequent property owner could then turn around and sue you and say, no, I don't think, I'm going to spend money to do more cleanup. I don't think it's clean enough.